Hey, hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. This is Patricia Potter with Kirkland Solutions. This is the Intermacs and PDMacs User Group webinar for March 26th. Today's meeting, we have a great meeting agenda for today. You're going to just go through some STS updates. I'm going to talk a little bit about the transfer process for patients. We have some guest speakers on with us today from Hartford Hospital. We have Colleen and Emily. They are going to be doing the first presentation of our new quality improvement series, and then we will have some time at the end of the call for some open discussion. If you do have any questions or any comments throughout the meeting, you can go ahead and put those in the QA box. So thank you everybody for joining. Today on the line from STS, we have Nancy Honeycutt, Carol Crone, Leanne Jones, and Emily Conrad. And then from the Kirkland Solutions, the data warehouse team, we have Maceo Cleget, John Pennington, and Jeannie Ann Love. So thank you all for joining. Just a reminder, we do have a STS Data Managers Facebook group. We would love to see you on there. It's a group for all the STS national databases, so you can join. It's a great place to network and meet other people. And then we also do have the STS Data Manager Collaborative, which is formerly known as the mentorship program. So if you are interested in being paired up with a mentor, or if you would like to be a mentor, you can scan this QR code and fill out the form making the request. So that's a great feature. Whoops. And then just a reminder, the 2024 Q4 reports will be distributed just in a few days at the end of the month on March 31st. So that will be coming up here shortly. Our next webinar will be April 17th. That's the Intermacs and PDMacs Quality Assurance Report webinar. So that's with the reports team with Dr. Ryan Cantor, Maceo Cleget, Brandon Singletary. And those are, like I said, quarterly. So it's a great opportunity if you have questions about your reports, about the dashboard. All the people will be available if you have any questions, so please join. AQO 2025 is in the works. We're going to be meeting shortly to discuss, and outline our meeting agenda. It's going to be for Intermacs and PDMacs. It's going to be on September 23rd. It's going to be a virtual conference, so it will be live virtual. So you'll join the panelists, the speakers, everybody will be there live. You'll see presentations. You'll have the opportunity to ask questions, engage with the presentations. And then there will be also, as we always do, the on-demand content as well. So if there is anything you're interested in seeing at AQO this year, or if you're interested in speaking on a topic, we would love to hear from you, because in the next couple of weeks, we will start outlining that agenda. And we want it to be a meeting that, is helpful for all of you. So if there is anything that you would like to see, please let us know and we'll do our best to get that content there for you. On our last call in February, we did the 2025 Data Manager Survey. Those results are in and they're on the STS website if you would like to go in and take a look. So if you go to sts.org and click on Research and Data, and then click on For Data Managers, scroll down the page about halfway, and there's this there's Essential Forms and Resources, and at the very bottom you'll see 2025 Intermacs Data Manager Survey. So you'll be able to see those results. Nancy and I will likely review those results on an upcoming webinar, but if you wanted to take a peek to see how things looked, the data is there for you. Just a reminder, we took the announcement down about the Innovate trial. And if you're not aware of what the Innovate trial is, the Innovate trial is a new trial that's going on with a new device, the Brio VAD versus the HeartMate 3. It's a randomized study. We did do a webinar back at the end of 2024, specifically on the Innovate trial and what it was. And we had an announcement on the page that the patients that are enrolled in the Innovate trial should be entered into the database if they do receive a HeartMate 3. We want to make sure we capture all those HeartMate 3s. However, if the patient gets a VAD, we're not collecting data as they're not FDA approved devices yet. So I just wanted to remind everybody, just because the announcement is down does not mean that, that doesn't apply anymore. So we're not collecting data yet on the VADs. So just a reminder, don't enter those into the database. If your patient does get a HeartMate 3 and they are part of the Innovate trial, like I said, you will enroll them into Intermacs, and then on the demographics form, you'll indicate that they are involved in a VAD-related study. The name of the study is the Innovate trial. And yeah, if you have any questions or if this comes up for one of your patients, just reach out and we'll help you work through it. And then I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to talk about the transfer process of Intermacs patients from one site to another site. We get lots of emails every day about transfers, and so I just want to kind of talk through it. Sylvia Lawton did a fantastic AQO presentation last year on transfer, so these are her slides, and it kind of really nicely lays out the entire transfer process and how it all works. So I'm just going to go through that. And then if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the QA box and we'll talk about them. So in this presentation, I'm just going to explain the process for transferring patients to another facility, review the process as the receiving center, discuss what shared care is, define non-Intermacs or international transfers, what those look like when patients are transferring, and then talk a little bit about death prior to the transfer process and how all that works. So if you have a patient that's transferring out, this is kind of what your checklist or your to-do list is for a patient that's leaving your center. So you want to verify with the VAD team that your patient has been accepted to the transferring center, complete all outstanding follow-ups, any rehospitalization forms, any adverse event forms, because you won't be able to transfer the patient if you have outstanding follow-ups. So that's one of the key reasons why I say make sure your follow-ups are completed. Contact the accepting center's Intermacs site administrator if possible, just so that you guys can be on the same page that this patient is leaving us and you are aware that they are coming to you. And then Jeannie Ann Love on the who I'm sure you all know at Kirkland Solutions at the data warehouse. You can notify her or myself via a secure email. So don't send PHI, through non-secure or non-NEO certified mail. And you want to include the patient's name, their date of birth, and where they're going. And then you'll add the patient transfer form in Intermacs on the web-based data entry system. And this will indicate that the patient is no longer receiving care at your site. And so you'll notice when you put in for those transfers, there isn't anywhere, there's not a box, and there's nowhere to indicate where the patient is going. And that's why the email to us at Kirkland Solutions is so important, because we don't know where the patient's going. We don't know that a transfer has been initiated. So that's why we need you to reach out to us and let us know, hey, this patient is going to be leaving us and going to a new site. And then if you're the receiving center, you have, little few things you need to do as well. Verify that the patient has been accepted at your center, contact the VAD team, the physicians, contact your VAD care team and confirm that, yes, we are receiving this patient, and contact the transferring center and let them know, hey, yes, we are accepting this patient. It's okay, to go ahead and send them our way. Shared care is not, and I do want to kind of touch on this, shared care is not a transfer. Shared care is an arrangement between two centers providing care in given intervals. There's different situations this applies to, if a patient is like, spends the winters like in Florida, if they're from the Northeast and they spend their winters in Florida, they may have a care team in Florida that they will check in with, but they're still being followed by their team in the Northeast. And the the team that's seeing them in Florida is not officially taking on their care. It's just that there's an arrangement, you know, for a temporary time, or that the patient is being seen there. So I hope that's not confusing. Also, shared care could be, you know, say site A is continuing to follow the patient, but the patient is just being evaluated for transplant at another center. Well, they're still getting their VAD care. They're still coming to the VAD clinic at center A, and they're still being followed there. But center B is just evaluating them for transplant. That's not a transfer. You know, they're still being followed by the VAD care team at center A, and B is just evaluating the transplant. So I just wanted to touch on that shared care is not considered a transfer if you're continuing to follow the patient. So, and then for transfers from non-Intermacs or international sites. So if a patient is implanted at a non-Intermac site inside or outside the US, and transfers to an Intermac site, the patient's not going to be an Intermacs because that center was not participating in Intermacs. So there's no data to send. Conversely, if you transfer a patient to a non-Intermac site, you know, obviously once you transfer them, they'll kind of, you know, end the time at your site, but they're not going to be picked up by another site because the new site is not an Intermac site. So, and then device exchange. If a device exchange occurs at an Intermacs site, the patient should be entered into the Intermacs registry. So with that said, say a patient is coming to you from a non-Intermac site, you know, you're not going to have a patient profile transfer to you. However, if the patient did receive a device exchange at your site, received a new device, they can be enrolled in Intermacs as a new patient at that time. So just keep that in mind. And then this is just to show you what it looks like in the web-based data entry. So when you go to initiate a transfer, you're gonna log into Intermacs, pull up the patient that's transferring, and you'll see their patient summary. And then right at the top right of the screen, under other tools, you'll see transfer patient. And then there will be a transfer form that populates, and you'll say, it reads transfer care to another hospital, and you'll click yes. And then I believe it prompts you to put in a date. That validate and submit, that won't be there if the patient doesn't have all their forms completed. So you won't see the transfer button unless all the forms have been completed. So that's kind of it. I'll just stop right there for the transfer process, or, you know, if anyone has any questions on that, we can talk about those before I go into my next couple of slides. Hi, Bonnie. So could you include the transfer checklist online? It doesn't happen very often for us, so I'm always looking for direction on how to transfer when it happens. Yes, absolutely. We can put these online. I believe it is, you know, all these steps are in the user's guide, but if it's helpful to have the checklist, we can certainly put that online. We'll probably put it under the Intermacs forms and appendices, and we can have it all there for you. So yeah. All right. Hi, Rosalind. If an exchange happens on a patient from a non-Intermacs site, it will be answered as the patient's first device within the database. I'm trying to think exactly, Rosalind, because I don't want to say wrong how it reads on the form. If you're asking about because I know there is a question of, is this the patient's, you know, primary or first durable device? That would be a no. Yes, that question. John, can you correct me if I'm wrong, because I can't think of exactly what questions it is, but I believe if it is not the patient's first primary durable device, you would say no, because it's not their first one.
You're talking about the screening log?
Say that again, John. I didn't hear you.
I said, are you talking about the screening log?
No, I believe it's on the pre-implant
Implant
form?
form where we ask if they have a history of implant.
Yeah. Is it the pre-implant where it asks the question of, is this the primary MCS device?
Hang on, I'll find.
Okay. Yeah, so Rosalind, if that is the question and that's how it's worded, no, because if they had a prior durable device, even though they were at a non-Intermax site, you would still say no to that question.
Yeah, and we added all those questions, on the implant form about did they go into the operation room with a device implanted. So it was a little
Mhm.
confused for a second. Sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
that PX primary, that patient primary questions on pre-implant.
Okay, yeah. So Rosalind, the answer to that would be it's a no. It's not their first durable device. And then on the pre-implant form, you can also indicate that they went to or on the implant, that they went to the OR with a device in place. And then so kind of our segue into our next part of our webinar, new for 2025, we have started doing Intermacs and PDMacs quality improvement webinars. We kind of touched about this back, I think, on our January webinar. So we are looking to hear from sites who would like to talk about how they have used Intermacs data to drive a quality improvement project at your site. So we do have some speakers here with us today to talk about how they did a quality improvement project at their site. Today on the call, we have Colleen and Kelly from Hartford Hospital, and they are going to be talking to us about how they did a project at Hartford Hospital on Driveline Infection Prevention.
Thanks, Patricia.
Okay.
You can hear me, correct?
I can hear you, yes. I will stop sharing my screen so you can share yours.
Okay.
All right. Should be able, do you see the share button?
Yes. And are you able to see my first slide?
We sure can, yep.
Okay, perfect. I'll just quickly introduce myself. My name is Colleen Drake. I'm the Intermacs data manager for Hartford Hospital. I've been in this role since 2018, doing the Intermacs registry. Some of my other responsibilities are tracking our ECMO, Impella, balloon pumps, PA sensors, our advanced heart failure outpatient clinic. And in my prior life, I was an echo technologist. So I did work clinical before I turned data analyst. And so I'm happy to be here and present this quality project. Kelly, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Kelly McNamara. I'm one of the VAD coordinators here at the hospital. I have been here probably since around maybe 2018, 2019 as well. I think I've been in the role 6 or 7, going on maybe 7 years. I started off in the ICU as in a different facility as actually a secretary. So I was the business associate on the floor, and then I became the patient care associate, and then ended up going to school and becoming one of the nurses in the cardiac ICU. At that point, I transitioned over here to Hartford Hospital. I dabbled in a lot of things when I had my children, but for whatever reason, landed up here, and I absolutely love my jobs, as Colleen will tell you. I live, breathe, and VAD is my thing. So anyway, go right ahead, Col.
All right, we'll get started. So today we're going to be focused on driveline infection and the quality project that we did with this. And I'll be showing the data, and then we'll get into our whole process improvement that we did to come up with all the interventions. And just keep in mind, though, that the interventions that we're going to be showing you were really only instituted in the last couple of months. And so hopefully maybe this time next year we'll be invited back, and we can hopefully show you the improvement in our driveline infections. So the first slide here is showing our Intermacs driveline infection data. And this is specifically for the late driveline infection, so 3 months or greater on a VAD. And the data goes back to 2020, and you can see that for pretty much 2020 through 2021, we were running about 9 to 10% for late driveline infection. And then around Q2, Q3 of 2022, which you can see in this inflection point here, we had a bit of an uptick where we actually had 4 patients with driveline infections that quarter. And so, and then from that point on, it kind of progressively increased over time. Now, prior to that Q2, Q3, 2022, we were running about 6 to 7% lower than when compared to STS. But ever since then, we've been closer to only about 4% lower than STS. And our current programmatic driveline infection rate for late drivelines is 14.5%. I have this on a small scale just so that you can appreciate and I can accentuate here these inflection points. And then also just to point out, we're focusing on the late driveline infection because our early driveline infections are actually quite low. So driveline infection is also one of our Joint Commission metrics. And so when we started our driveline infection prevention process, that was back in about mid-2023. And this was also when we were preparing for our next Joint Commission survey. So we decided, we knew that we were going to have to start changing out a metric. As everyone knows, when you get really good at a metric, they want you to change it out. So we figured we will add driveline infection in. And we actually had our last survey in early January 24. So that's when we started tracking this as one of the Joint Commission metrics. The difference is this focus is on our current VAD patients on support. So the Intermacs data is more programmatic, and these are specifically looking at our current VAD patients. Again, keeping in line with the late. So basically, it's the patients that are on support for 3 months or greater. And I'm sorry, I mean that the infection happened 3 months after the implant. I misspoke. So when you're looking at this data, the very last data that we have here from December of 2024 is that we had 52 patients and 12 of them were with driveline infections. So that puts us at about 23% for the driveline infection. And we have a set goal here for about 10%, trying to get below that. And then what we also did was we took those 12 patients and we decided to look at what was the underlying cause of why the driveline infections actually happened. And so we basically came up with 4 categories: dropping the VAD bag, sleeping on stomach, inadequate anchor, and incorrect dressing change or some type of re-education. So this is a summary of our driveline infection process improvement. Is our plan, do, study, and act. And obviously the goal is to decrease driveline infections. And then we created our driveline infection task force, which was, like I said, around mid-2023. And we started performing a root cause analysis of our driveline sources. And those are basically those 4 categories that I showed on the previous slide. And then the next step was to actually come up with interventions, which Kelly's going to go into in much more detail. So we have creating a new driveline kit, collaborating with occupational therapy and physical therapy more, utilizing additional equipment for prevention, and collaborating with our ostomy and wound care nurses. And in this whole process, you know, we identified barriers also. So we had some barriers with supply management, specifically with creating this new Driveline kit. Patient education, mostly because our VAD coordinators are not the only people who are educating for the Driveline care. And then transitioning to home, where patients are, you know, having to do this on their home when they finally get home. All right, Kelly, I think you can take it away and get into more specifics, and I will advance for you.
So our first intervention was we wanted to look at our Driveline kit, and what we discovered is, if you see, look at the very big picture there, we had a very tedious Driveline kit. So patient support people wore gowns, they wore caps, they actually made a sterile field and made a sterile window. What we discovered was that the gowns, families were not tying it. So the gown was like touching dirty stuff. So it was becoming unsterile. The sterile towels that they were using were dropping, and they were touching them and lifting them back up. So there was room for improvement there. What we decided to do is we decided not only we were going to re-educate our patients, and we created videos. We decided that we were going to do a dressing change competency. So every so often, meaning at least annually, we require patients, family members, or whoever's doing the dressing, because we do have some patients that do the dressing themselves, to perform their dressing change in front of us. So we want to make sure that they're doing it correctly. As you are aware, sometimes you get a little bit lazy and you could skip a step. Well, we don't want them to skip a step. We want them to follow exactly what we've designed, because what we've designed is going to be the safest for them. So what we also did was we created this very personalized dressing kit. So we had, I don't want to mention any names here, but a specific company, Medline, you could see it right there. They helped us create this kit, and we actually had many replicas come about, probably I think 7 of them, before we finalized what exactly we wanted to do. And this is a very, I don't know what the proper word is, but it is a very step by step process, and there really is no room for error here. So these were the things that we did about using an incorrect dressing change. We attempted to fix that. So next slide. Easy enough. What else did we do? We noticed that patients were dropping their bag, controllers were falling all over the place. So believe it or not, there's something called the philanthropy fund that we have here at Hartford, and I'm sure many other institutions have that, where donations are made. Annually, we get donations from past VAD patients, past transplant patients that donate money. So we actually, at this big event that we have, which we can talk about a little bit later, we give out to each of our patients a VAD shirt. And what does that do? That helps the situation to prevent patients from dropping their controller, dropping their bag. These are very expensive shirts, and we can get them at a discount if you just call and ask. So that was another thing that we did. So go right ahead. Next slide. Another thing was that we found that patients weren't always wearing an anchor. Anchor was falling off. They decided that they were going to use tape. We require our patients to wear 2 anchors. That was the first step. That was the first transition that we came up with. But patients' habituses were not appropriate at times. So putting an anchor on somebody with a small torso was a little difficult at times. What we did a little research, and we found these double VAD anchors, which can be used at the hospital for many things, by the way. So this is a great tool. to use, and it's really prevented a lot of issues and tugging on that drive line. What we also do is we require a binder in the beginning for the first actually couple months before you know, patients really are up and moving, going to cardiac rehab. We want them to move, but we want them to be safe at the same time and getting used to all the equipment that they're wearing. So making sure that they have the proper anchor is key, and we really found this anchor to be beneficial. It's really good on the skin too. So our next slide. So we talked about different equipment too, and we talked about dropping the bag, but what we also are going to talk about is sleeping on on patients or sleeping on their stomach. So in all our VAD implants, there's this wearable accessory kit that we weren't really doing anything with, believe it or not. It has the strap and it has this little case that patients were just taking home and eventually I think just throwing out. Well, when we did a little digging, we decided that we wanted to use it as a sleep belt. So they're already getting this, and this is part of the kit that comes when you're implanting a patient, the implant kit. So we're utilizing now as a sleep belt. That will also prevent the patient from dropping the controller while they're in bed, because it's caught, you know, it's right snug up against them. So that's actually one of our physical therapists that helped to come up with the idea. And another thing that we decided to do, because we want to prevent them from sleeping on their stomachs, right? Everybody loves to sleep on their stomach, is to give them a pregnancy pillow, but we're calling it a VAD wedge. So why not, you know, double dip there? So this is our VAD wedge. It does prevent them from sleeping on their side. And believe it or not, we ended up getting the philanthropy fund to fund this as well. So we give out this to all our patients. Next slide. We talked about collaboration. Now, with the sleep belt, with the VAD wedge, we talked about physical therapy and occupational therapy coming in to help us. The picture on the right is actually a picture of our therapy team and that's speech therapy, physical therapy, and occupational therapy, who actually went up to Abbott and had a whole day up there, which was kind of cool for them. It got them really engaged, and they love the VAD program. They are very invested in it. And believe it or not, we all have our niche. And I think it's important to include everybody because everybody has different ideas. So we're utilizing their expertise in helping us create quality improvement projects. And hopefully this is one of them, and it'll end up working, and we'll get the data next year for you guys. As far as our wound ostomy team, we were talking about placement, site placement, specifically with our cardiac surgeons. So we developed a questionnaire, just like they do with ostomies. Our team will go with the surgeon and the ostomy team to look at the patient and say, okay, where is the best place to put the drive line? Because that's another issue. Where are you putting the drive line? Does the patient play golf? Does a patient garden? Are they right-handed? Are they left-handed? Are they a little on the heavier side? So are there skin folds? We need to make sure that we're not putting the drive line in a skin fold. These are all really important. Again, we're talking about what side do they prefer to sleep on? Where is their waistband? Again, what activities are they involved in? And if your patient is doing their own dressing change, can they visualize where the drive line site is? That's going to be important because a lot of them want to be independent and do things on their own. So it's really important for them to feel like they're in control, they're empowered, and they can see what they're doing. And this will prevent infection. We take all of this information and we actually discuss it at our MCS meetings so that everybody's on the same page and it's not a surprise why the drive line was implanted on the right side versus left and vice versa. So Team collaboration is very important. And for example, I work with Colleen on a daily basis. If Colleen, I see that the patients are getting a driveline infection, but Colleen was the one who triggered and said, Kelly, there's an inflection point in the graph. We need to figure this out now. So team collaboration is huge. Next slide. Areas of opportunity. So with all of this, we discovered that the supply management was a huge issue with getting not only our driveline kit processed. It took me over a year to get them to agree to it. It took them a little faster to get the anchor, which I was shockingly surprised, but constant communication with supply management. So, you know, we have to befriend your supply management team, know the process, understand the process. We want to support everybody, and supporting occupational therapy and our physical therapy and our speech therapists are important as well. But we discovered things, gaps in care when we talked to our therapy team. For example, we weren't letting our patients shower for quite a long time. That is something that we're allowing our patients to do, and our occupational therapists are, you know, developing, or have developed, I should say, a bathing protocol. So they're teaching our patients how to bathe, and this is a concept that could help with driveline prevention as well. By preventing driveline infections, we're going to decrease mortality in our VAD patients. Simple interventions such as re-education and optimizing driveline dressing kits can reduce infections, and improving driveline location sites can reduce future trauma, decrease in infection rates. And it's important that we continue to track to determine intervention improvement to see if everything is working. So it's always an ongoing process. And you know what? There is no reason why we can't change things that aren't working, and we will continue to do so. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly and Colleen. That's great. I love all of that. I love that your project was so patient-centered focused on the patient. I love the sleep belt. I remember when I was working inpatient, you know, even in the hospital, we would have patients wear binders, but sometimes, you know, they would loosen them at night and they'd be turning side to side, and the controller would, you know, everything would be pulling. So I love that.
I love the VAD shirt. And I also like how you, I always go back to the team collaboration piece. I think it's so important to get input from the entire team. And sometimes some of the simplest ideas can have the biggest impact. So I love how you took feedback from the entire team to create your process improvement plan and interventions. That was great.
Thank you.
I'm just going to do a quick plug of two things. Just that I use the Intermacs reports every time they come out. I created my own dashboard so that I can track specific adverse events. So like just going back to what Kelly said, you know, we are looking at this stuff. I present quarterly at our VAD QAPI. And when I do see something, I say something. And driveline infection was one, and another one more recently is our 30-day readmission. So that's just one thing, how useful these reports and the data is, and how we apply it all the time in our program. I'm tracking all that data, plus also the Joint Commission metrics, obviously. And then I'm just going to do a quick plug. Kelly had this great idea a few years ago, and we call it March Vadness, and it's actually happening this Friday. I go and help, and it's basically a way to do the equipment management and have everyone come. It's a really great, it's like a health fair for the patients. And it's also to get them to come in and get their equipment checked, but it's really a great event. We have different vendors there, and we have something like 30 something patients coming on Friday, right, Kelly?
Yeah, 30 patients.
Yeah.
And there's support people too. So it's an opportunity for support people to get support from others, you know? We have giveaways, and we have like Stop and Shop, and we have yard goats, and all sorts of donations that, you know, we work for it, but we get it to try to get our patients to, you know, get out of the house and do other things. So it's a great showing for them. So I did see quickly the shirts, we get them from elevadgear.com, believe it or not, and they give us a deal. So you can plug them right there.
We have a few questions, and it seems like the shirts are very well liked. And then one question from Tasha is, who did she say the team collaboration met with?
Oh, so as far as the team collaboration, we met with not only our wound care team, we met with the surgeons. Oh, you mean Abbott? We actually brought, I think this is what you're talking about. We brought them up to Abbott and had them get a tour of the facility. So where they make, where they investigate the LVAD device if something were to go awry. And, you know, they had a whole day of a lecture of, you know, what they should be doing, what they need to look at as physical therapists, occupational therapists. So it was a great day for them. I think that's what you were talking about.
And then Angela Batista says, great project. Can we get a copy of these slides? Yes, we will post these. They will be posted on the STS page along with my slides from today. So everything will be posted from today.
So, well, thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
then Christine Carroll said, great topic and presentation. Thank you for sharing. And then Tasha said, yes, Abbott, thank you. Great info. We're working on the same thing at our facility.
Good.
Love it. It's great.
Yeah, I think your project was a fantastic example of how to use the data for patients to make, you know, improve quality for the patients. I think that's what we all strive for. So thank you.
You're welcome.
For
Thanks.
having us.
That looks like all of our questions. Does anybody else?
Hi, Patricia. It's Carol.
Hi, Carol. Do you
Crone.
have some
Hi.
questions before I speak too soon?
No, it was a fabulous presentation. You guys, you probably don't realize how good it was, but I know it was very good and everybody enjoyed it. It was a lot of thoughtful information and things that folks can take back home to their facilities. I do want to call out Tasha Sidbury, who said we're working on the same thing at our facility. Tasha, we would absolutely love for you to come and present for us. Kelly and Colleen are the trail makers, and if you want to come be a trailblazer, come on in. Thanks,
Everyone is
Patricia.
welcome.
Everyone is, yes, we're a very welcoming group.
Oh, we got another question from Carrie. Hi, Carrie. Would love to share this recording with a few of our VAD coordinators who could not make it today. Do you know when this webinar will be posted?
I'll get it posted up to the website as soon as it's available. It usually takes about a day or two.
Yeah, so the recording will be up there. Kelly and Colleen's slides will be up there, and then just the slides from today. Bill has a question, just a general question. Any thought of adding into the primary reason for hospitalization? I had a run of patients last fall with failure to thrive. Is there a chance at getting failure to thrive as a choice? Yeah, I don't see why we couldn't add that. Nancy and I will discuss that and with the surgeons as well, but I'd have to look at what our options are and currently, but I do think failure to thrive could possibly be one we could add to the rehospitalization form for a primary reason for hospitalization. Thanks, Bill. I'll make a note of that. Hi, Rosalind. Yes, the results are in. They are on the STS website. So if you go to sts.org, and then I think it was, correct me, STS team if I'm wrong, it was
Yeah.
something like
It's
data
under-
and research and for data managers, and then under essential forms, the results are there.
That was correct.
And Nancy and I, we kind of talked about we might review those results on a future webinar, so we can kind of go through the results there. All right, so our next webinar is going to be April 17th. That's the reporting webinar. So that will be coming up. And then just a reminder, your 2024 Q4 reports will be distributed March 31st. So in just a couple of days. I think that's kind of it. Oh, hi, Lori. The link that is
That's a bad link.
sign up is not working. Lori, do you get like an error message or?
I had posted that link in the chat. Let me see if I can get to it.
Nancy, someone is saying that it did work for them. So I don't know if maybe it's a browser or.
Yeah, I posted it again in the chat, but if you go to the STS website, on the page where you find the webinars, there is a link on that page. It's under resources for data managers, and just scroll down to nearly the bottom of the page, and it's right above where it says Intermacs database.
Oh, she got it to work.
She got it to work. Good.
All right, well, I think that's all we have. Kelly, Colleen, fantastic presentation. Thank you so much. And we really appreciate you being the first ones to present. So we would love to keep this series going. I know it's great to hear, what everybody's doing at their hospital. And, we know everyone's doing great things. So we love to hear about it. So if you are interested in sharing, we would love to hear from you. So just reach out to Nancy or myself, and we can work out a webinar you can join. Great. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Again, thank you, Colleen and Kelly. Thank you, STS team, Kirkland Solutions. We will talk again in a couple weeks on the reports webinar. Have a nice afternoon, everybody, and we'll talk soon. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.